Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. This is Michael Goldberg, and welcome to a special dinner edition of LinkedIn Live. I have an amazing guest tonight. His name is Andrew Guy, the gentleman to my right, your left. I don't know how it works. But anyway, I am so excited to have him. You know, it's interesting. Andrew and I really met as we were commenting on a post.
Right.
And I think it was it I forgot her name off the top of my head. Was it the blue recruiter, the blue-haired recruiter?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And I had mentioned something like, where do I start? And you really kind of challenged me to say, hey, man, it's up to you.
That's right.
It's up to you to figure things out. And
Right.
so from there, this conversation was born. And I'm just super excited to have you. So welcome, Andrew Guy.
Thank you so much. Michael, I'm glad to be here for all of your viewers. Welcome. I am either to your right or to your left, but I'm on the screen. I'm
Right.
glad that we start this conversation. My name is Andrew Guy, and reside in Canada, but basically travel wherever I need to go, wherever I need to go do a workshop. I am the founder of Work-Life Enrichment Seminar, and basically the seminar is set up to where we go into workplace and empower employees to help them to understand that it's not a balancing game where they say work-life balance. It's about the enrichment process. And so my goal is to go into corporate workplaces and deal with executives and leadership team to help them understand this is what it's about. If we focus on the balancing issue, we will be juggling until the cows come home, and no one will be I would say satisfied. We'll just be skipping jobs, looking for something better or greener grass on the other side. But it's about the enrichment factor in terms of health and wellness and being a happy employee so you can serve your gifts as your expertise. So that's what I did.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic. I am curious, how did you find your focus in that? I had looked through your LinkedIn profile and you had done several different things before you really did target and focus on this so what brought you to that moment of realization, like, this is what I want to do?
Well, you know what's amazing though, Mike? I think that in everyone's life, there are pathways. I've written a book called Work Your Words and Finding Your Pathway to Personal Success. I believe that everyone is searching for success and they look so many different pathways to find it, only to come back to self. It's gonna have to start with me, just like we stepped up and we say, hey, Mike, let's do something about this post that was put out there on LinkedIn about, hiring people of color, or should I say Black people, let's just be specific.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was about, I started out doing stand-up comedy. I'm not sure if you know Russell Peters. He's an Indian gentleman here in Canada, just very funny.
Yeah.
But I used to do comedy, and it was all about trying to bring laughter and joy to people. It was just in me. That's what I love to do. But what I found out is right after my comedy, I'm giving some real life tips about this is what you need to do to improve your life. And it seems like those were more memorable than the actual jokes themselves. And after I finished that, I went off to pursue a degree in Arkansas, in the South, so to speak, right, which we will talk about later on.
Mhm.
And while doing so, I discovered that while I was doing a show there, the gentleman, he is the head of the diversity and multicultural department, said to me, you really should get into some public speaking, because the information that you're giving these students, you have them at the front of their seat. You got to do something with that. And so I put it off. I'm like, yeah, whatever, this is my thing, man. This is what I want to do.
Right.
And it wasn't until after I ran for leadership as president of the International Student Association that I really saw how words are powerful and how you can use words to transform people's life. And so I had to make the switch. I still put the comedy relief in my presentation, right? But it's about delivering a message that's going to transform people's life. And so that's where I started my journey. And that is about what else is there after the laughter is finished. It's about helping them to create a greater impact in their life.
That's awesome. And I mean, kudos. I mean, I talk about a hard profession in comedy. Now, did you do improv, or was it more like true stand-up?
This is true stand-up. We throw down. There was a group that was founded by gentleman here, Canada's #1 comic, they call him, Kenny Robbins. And Kenny Robinson started what's called the Nubian Disciples of Prayer, a comedy club. It's a chain of comedy club called Yuck Yucks. and we'd go down there and we put on these shows every second Sunday, and they were amazing. People came out in droves to see us perform.
Nice.
Yes.
And so let's talk about something that's not really a laughing matter. Let's kind of dive in if we can. So
Exactly.
Tonight's topic,
Yes.
what I wanted to talk with you about is, how race is going to have an impact on employee engagement, talent attraction, and hiring more Black executives in the corporate world. So it could be corporate America, corporate Canada, wherever, right? Because there is a huge gap in Black executives. So let me start with my first question here, if I can. So what are your thoughts, on changing the mindset of diversity and inclusion to focus on more of Black executives at the director, senior director, EVP, SVP, VP levels, even up to the C-suite and board level?
Correct.
What are your thoughts? Where do we even start to have those conversations?
Michael, you said change in their mindset. I think before we can change a mindset, there must be an awareness. People must be aware of what's happening. If I gave this presentation when I do a workshop, a specific workshop called What's in Your Toolbox, and it's based around diversity. So it's under the title of diversity. But then I challenge the leaders in the company and said, okay, now what's in your toolbox? If something was broken in your company, take it, for example, a car or an engine. Do you know exactly what tools you will need to fix the engine? And if so, where do you find them? And so we had a breakout session where I got all these execs around the table and we're talking. We say, okay, fine. Do you know who is the hammer in your company? Do you know who is the saw? Do you know who is the measuring tape? Do you know these individuals? And I break it down. I said, these are their function. You have to understand their function and how they are part of the entire whole. But if we segregate and just focus just on color or skin tone or the appearance of an individual, we will miss the entire function of what we're trying to do. Let's say, for example, you're a company and you are preaching diversity, so to speak. And this is why we're actually having this conversation now. That, the Blue recruiter said that, trauma is not PR, quote unquote. That's exactly what they said. And they're saying that because the trauma that we feel as people of color is being used as a PR brand awareness to get the word out about your company, knowing so that you don't really care about diversity, correct? So to answer your question, before we can change a mindset, there has to be an awareness that there are other people in the recruiting pool that have skills and expertise that can meet the demands of what you are actually looking for. Must be an awareness first.
And I agree. So let's talk about, I want to come back to diversity and inclusion, the word in a moment.
Yes.
But, so maybe this isn't the right word to use, but where does that awareness or even the grooming to change the mindset start? Does it start in early childhood? Does it start in teenagers? I mean, look, we can all push racism, and if it was that easy, then everyone would do it. But where do you start to educate? I'm of the opinion that it starts at the we level, right? As I had mentioned, I was fortunate enough to have a mother and a father who respected, and I grew up in Charleston, South Carolina, which has a very large Black population. But to respect them, no matter what they did, you were to respect everyone you came into contact with.
Correct.
Never have a stereotype, because we all bleed the same way.
Correct.
We all are built the same way. We just come in different shapes and sizes, and our skin color might be different, but they're still a human.
Right.
So talk to me about where you think the grooming process starts, and if that's missed at that early childhood, how do you start doing that in the adult world?
Mike, that's a great question. I like what you said. You said, if yes, and the word is emphatically yes. We have to start it must be as early as possible. I mean, you can even start in the womb, in the belly. If you can speak to that belly, you better start as early as possible. There was a great song that my brother Courtney really loves. He admires this song and he brought it to my attention several months ago. It says, "Children live what they learn, and children learn what they live." It's a song by Les Crane, 1971.
What's it called?
Now, children live what they learn, and children learn what they live by Lescrane, 1971 album. It's a powerful song. And if you listen to the song, it talks about a child learn how to hate because they've been frequently criticized. So all of these things that we're seeing is a manifestation of childhood. These things didn't just happen. So, adult that you see now who's racist or have a stereotypical behavior, they didn't just happen to fall off a turnip truck and this happened. This is something that has been bred, that's been systematized, this has been taught. This is what's happening. So now they grew up with this mindset that, okay, my father did it or my mother did it, then so shall I. Then I guess it's okay for me to do it. The issue is when they get older, then it's reinforced, right? But the seed was planted way early in childhood. So I would definitely agree with you that the earlier, the better. And you cannot start. There is no earlier. There's no too early. The earlier you can get on it, the better. My grandmother says, this is an old proverb. She said, "Bend the tree while it's young, because when it gets old, you cannot do anything with it. You cannot change its growth path." And so that's what happened. Teenagers, they've already made up their mind. They just need direction when you get to that level. But to impart upon them the wisdom that they need, that you're going to use to curtail or to shape the trajectory of their future, it's got to start as early as possible.
I couldn't agree more. And, one of the, Alma, thank you for your comments there. Andrew, I don't know if you can see, these are some of the comments coming in.
Yes.
Diversity and inclusion is not PR, has to be a part of the day-to-day. She also says, this is interesting. Saw a list today, a Google presentation of companies that put Black Lives Matter messages out into social media, but are not backing anything up with action.
No, they're not.
Let's talk about that. Why is that? Is that just to say, okay, and it's almost like that diversity statement that you're putting out there just to say, yes, you're not standing by your brand, right? Your company brand to make a difference.
But there's another saying that says, "Put your money where your mouth is." You know what's strange, Michael? If you go out there and you look up Black executive in Canada, you wouldn't see like a direct search that says, okay, find these many Black C-suite or leadership in this particular position. You won't see it. It may be there, but it may be obscured. The reason why is now it's encumbered by this one word, diversity. So diversity means I can put anything underneath there and make diversity to mean something specific for me that is completely different from the big elephant in the room. And so the big elephant in the room is, why aren't the hiring process equal, or the playing field leveled for everyone? But diversity is the cloak that they hide behind to say that, oh, I am actually doing my part. But it's really about PR, because we know that certain things will get specific attention. Certain videos will go viral, especially if it has to do with hate, racism, the cliche stuff, religion, politics, that kind of stuff. So companies are playing off of this and using it as some kind of PR mandate to get their brand out, when in fact they know, it's evident that, okay, if you're putting out this PR, why don't you show how many executives are people of color, or Latino, or Asian, or Hispanic? Why don't you do that? Or let's say brown-skinned people, East Indian. Do that first, and then say, hey, I believe in diversity. Here's my proof. Where's your proof? I see your brand statement. I don't see the proof, and it's in the pudding.
Yeah, I worked, and I couldn't agree more. I worked for I was the head of recruiting for the American Heart Association. And it's
Right.
interesting, the American Heart Association, we had a chief diversity officer, but the chief diversity officer, it wasn't about, it was, yes, it was about diversity inside the organization, but it was also about offering equal health care in lower income neighborhoods to prevent stroke, to prevent heart disease.
Right.
And when I worked there, I felt like I was a part of that diversity movement, if you
Right.
will, because we stood behind it to help others, regardless of what color of their skin.
Correct.
But, just the way our cities are zoned out, whether it's here in Texas or up in Niagara Falls, where you are, or Toronto,
Right.
or wherever, it's just, to me, I think it's more of a, we're doing it than we're really doing it. And
Correct.
and there are some companies that stand behind that mission, but not many people do what they say. But I was proud to work for that organization because
Right.
we actually were doing it and getting out into the communities and meeting people where they are. Right. So you shouldn't wait for people to come to you,
No, you
especially if
can't.
you're recruiting or anything.
Exactly.
You go to them. You go
Exactly.
to them. Right. So diversity inclusion, buzzword or not?
I think it depends on
The
which
practice.
spectrum you're looking at. For some people, they mean what they say. Some people, they do what they say. And for some people, it's the popular thing to do because there are fundings for diversity or employing diversity. There are fundings for making sure that you appear to have the appearance of equal hiring across the spectrum. But if you go behind the closed door, once you go inside these companies, is a completely different thing. When I think of diversity, Michael,
Mm-hmm.
I think of the human body. My background, as a matter of fact, I was a certified science teacher. So I had to deal with the aspect of little boys who were taught that they're never going to be anything. And I'm going to come back to diversity because I think this is very important so we can get the point straight. And I was teaching in Jacksonville, Florida. And in Northeast Jacksonville, this is Jacksonville, it's a nice city, but there are also places that are not so, should I say, favorable. Okay. Let me just put it from a politically correct standpoint. However, there are kids that used to come to my classroom crying every day. One, because they didn't eat, they didn't have breakfast, and some were on detention, and they had other issues too. But case in point, we preach diversity where 98% of the kids were from an African American background in that particular school. Okay. There's a particular test that they take called the FCAT, Florida Comprehensive Assessment Test. They take this every year. They struggled with this test, especially the science portion of it. And prior to me coming to this school, I told these kids, I said, let me tell you something. You have the ability to make it. Don't let people garnish you or label you based on what you look like, because there's a function that's inside all of us. We look the same on the inside, but no one will know, like Martin Luther King says, until we look at the content of the person on the inside. But we focus so much on the paint job and miss the engine that could. And these guys went on to getting perfect for the first time in history on the science portion of the exam. And so the district would come in and try to figure out, what are you doing differently? I'm telling them what they are. They're champions, they're winners. To get back to your point, diversity is not something that you just say. You have to live it. You have to do it. And getting back to what you say, going into the communities, why aren't certain companies recruiting in certain areas? Why?
Because they're
interested in those people.
They're afraid to, right? They're afraid to. Would that be the right answer?
That's true. They're
or
really
they don't
not.
care, or they're not even giving it a second thought.
They're not even a first thought.
Correct.
They're not. It's like I'm not. If I'm recruiting for a basketball team, I'm going to go into certain places because I believe that those players are better than some. No, I think that we need to look at, if we're looking at diversity, truly looking at diversity, we have to look at now the skill set, the expertise that people bring into the workplace. And if this, you know what, let me back up. The reason why we're having an issue with this diversity and inclusion problem is because they don't have a mission statement. They don't have a vision statement. Michael, let me talk to you. I'm getting excited right about now because this is where the rubber hits the ground. This is what. Whoa, let me just get this hairpiece set. Listen.
So, yeah. But it goes back to what you said, though.
Yes.
Until you do it,
you're just talking it. You're not walking it.
Right. And it's complete BS.
It is complete.
It's just it's you know, and when I used to develop career sites,
right.
You know, they go, well, what about a diversity statement? I go,
it's a statement.
It's a statement. It's not actions. And I would say mission and vision are BS statements too.
If you're not following it.
If you're not following it and you're not, you know, and it does start, I mean, I hate to go cliche, but it starts at the top from the board, yes. Which in the United States, I don't know about Canada, but which are made up of a lot of old white guys.
Correct.
And some women, maybe,
yes.
if they're lucky. It's still a huge issue. So this mission and vision stuff, you can say it all you want, but if you're not actually walking the talk, as you say, it's just words, just to make you feel good about yourself, so you can get contracts, you know, right?
Funding.
You know, right. And you know, when you in procurement agencies and you have to fill out the forms, tell us what your diversity statement is. Tell us your stance on affirmative action and all that. I'm like, why are we having to do this? Because it shouldn't matter whether our vendors have a different color skin if they're the most qualified for handling the vendor service. Or hell, if you're a recruiter, now you got me wound up. If you're a recruiter and a hiring manager,
yes,
yeah, bring those people on because they're the most qualified for the job, not because the color of the skin or the accent, or maybe they have a deformity or they're missing an arm or leg or they're in a wheelchair. Hire the most qualified person and quit jacking around with buzzword statements. I'm sick and tired of it.
That's PR. That is PR. You see, I just hit a nerve. I like to speak to people where they're speaking from the nerve. It's passion coming out, but it's not just passion just for publicity. It's passion because this is what I stand behind, this is what I believe in, and this is what it's about. Now we talk about mission and vision statement, but do you know what is the most important thing in a company? Is the value statement. You see what I'm saying? You talk about mission and vision, but if you don't have a value statement, it's that this is what we believe in. This is the fuel that drives our engine. This is why we open the doors every day. This is why we're doing this. The value statement says this is what we stand behind. Yeah, the vision is kind of where we're going. This is where we see ourselves in a couple of years. And the mission, this is how we're going to get there. But the value, it needs to be clear. It needs to be straightforward. It needs to say, this is who we believe in. These are the people that's going to get us there. We believe in expertise, skill set. We're not looking at the skin tone. We're looking at the engine that could, regardless of their skin tone. I don't care about a paint job. Talk to me about the engine. And let's go everywhere we can. If we're going to talk diversity, let's dive in the universe so we can create a city. If we're going to talk.
And we're diving in head first. We're not putting our feet first in the water.
That's not a dive. That's a step in.
That's right. So as a former swimmer, I can tell you that. So it was interesting. So, you know, you speak of values. And one of the things that when I'm coaching my job seeking clients, the first thing I ask them in the workbook that we go through, what are your values?
Right.
What are your values? What companies would you like to work for that match your values?
It's key.
You know, if they don't have the culture and the values that match your culture and values,
why go there?
Work for that company because it's a bunch of BS words on a piece of website or a piece of paper.
Correct. But you know what though, Mike? I hate to cut you, but I had to chime in. There are a lot of people that are applying for what's called the quote unquote good job. right?
Yeah.
And they're applying there because it pays well. I think that as a job seeker, you also need to have the value statement doesn't only just help you to focus on the right companies, but if they don't match the value that you have, you are actually wasting your time. If you're going there just because should I say,
Right.
the piggy bank is big, then you're going to be miserable because you're not going to get the respect that you need. You're not going to be valued there. I've had individuals that I'm actually coaching who have gone through trauma. I mean, traumatic experience because they were in a position at big companies who were paid well, been there for like 20 years, and they were experiencing headache, stress, trauma because they were looked at or demoted from a position because of the color of their skin.
It's so it kind of leads me to the next question. So, what are the key steps for companies to initiate a focus without affecting races outside the Black race, right? Or making it about affirmative action goals or numbers or whatever the hell people are saying these days.
Mhm.
You know, and I'll let you answer the question. What are the key steps for companies to initiate a focus without leaving the other races behind, and so that again, it's the best candidate in place? Or we want to change the mindset, but we don't want to, we want to, when we say inclusion, we want everyone to feel like they have an equal opportunity to come work here and be successful. So is it dangerous for companies to go on and say, hey, we love Native Americans, we love Hispanics, we love Asians, we love two races, whatever, but we're really going to we need to focus on hiring more Black executives. How do you feel about that? And and so how do you bring it together without leaving somebody out and having reverse discrimination?
Okay. If the focus is just to bring in Black executive, then do that.
Yes.
Just straight up. If your focus is to bring in Black executive because you feel that they are qualified and not been given the opportunity, then why not bring them in? Now, if your focus is to bring in the best individuals, then let that be your focus. I have learned this long time ago that it's like driving. If I'm going down the street, Michael, and my focus is to focus on the road because I have my sons in the car and my goal was to get them back home alive and safe, I want to focus on the road. So all the other cars that are on the road, I'm going to ignore those. So what am I saying to you? Case in point, that whatever you focus on, you will always miss something. Either if you focus, say, well, I'm going to bring in more Black executive, then I'm going to miss the Asian, I'm going to miss the Hispanic, I'm going to miss the other race, I'm going to miss the Native Indians, I'm going to miss something. So it means that whatever you decided to focus on, you just got to man up or woman up or company up and say, this is what I'm doing. The issue that we're having is that when you don't, your focus is something else, but you're saying something else. You're saying that, oh, we're focused on diversity, but there is nothing in your company that reflects diversity. If you're talking about diversity, diversity can take on a large spectrum, but what do you mean? Do you mean diversity as in having more culture, having a culture day, celebrating certain holidays? What exactly is your focus, and what does diversity mean to you? Is it only on a piece of paper, or is it a kind of action? And affirmative action, when we look at affirmative action, is saying, let's give people of color a fair chance. If we go all the way back to the statement that was made by the U.S. government that says, let's give the slaves 40 acres and a mule, because it seems as if other Europeans got a fair shot. They got a piece of land. They got an opportunity to start over again. And so the question is, where is this 40 acres and a mule for people of color? But instead, what I have noticed that based on the research I was looking at, and it was showing that there are systemic systems that are put in place to limit the executive, the Black executive, from getting in, the limit the Black person, a person of color, from actually having an opportunity in the first place. So if we're looking at this diversity, we have to look at getting rid of the systems that are in place that limit a particular group of individual because of what they look like.
Right. And so it's almost like, and I dare say this, but it's almost like affirmative action was created by the OFCCP as a guise to promote equality in hiring, what,
Right.
20 something years ago?
Yes.
30 years ago, 40 years ago, as a part of the Civil Rights Act, I think of the amended version in 60, was it 68, or it could have been later. Don't have it in front of me, but it's a government program.
Correct.
And it's only for contractors that spend $50,000 with the federal government. But you know what? And you tell me if I'm wrong to say this, but God bless it. Affirmative action, to me, further continues to create barriers between the races and between us as Americans. The focus groups that are in organizations. It's great. You have, a Black focus group, an Hispanic focus group, an LGBTQ focus group,
correct,
a trans focus group. But you know what? I mean, do you agree that you're just building more walls within a company?
That's exactly right.
Essentially, it's BS, right?
It is completely BS, and I think that not only does it's a fallacy of composition. You're judging, you're taking the focus off the specific, the thing that you need to target. Yes, you're talking about diversity, but how you're going about it is from a political perspective to make it seem that you're being fair to everyone else. You're creating these little pockets of individual pockets of culture to make your company feel and look and appear as if it's diverse. But you're really putting up more walls, dissension, segregation. Oh, it's a trans day today, or it's a Black day today. I heard an actor said, "Why do we even have Black History Month?" I said, then how can we limit a race of people or the accomplishment and contribution of a group of people to 28 days or 29 if we have a leap year? I said, are you serious? Then whatever happened to the other 11 months? So it's a way of compartmentalizing. It's systemic. It's in everything that the system delivers. If it's conjured up by the system is going to affect everyone else who is part of the system. In the end, the people who suffer most are the ones who are not having the means to production. Those are the people that suffer the most.
All right. So you want us to be the biggest, lamest excuse? You ready? And I'm sorry, I don't have this person's name. I don't want to know this person's name. But you're about to see the standard excuse. And I was going here in a minute.
Right.
But look at this. As an executive recruiter, the difficulty in finding Black senior leaders there are very few. Well, no shit.
Oh, come on, Mike. What is that?
Yeah, right. Okay, you ready? So when there is a Black executive available, the company doesn't have a positive reputation of supporting Black executives. Therefore, a Black executive will not risk joining a company who is not equipped as its career suicide. What are your thoughts on that comment?
Career suicide. Well, first of all, obviously they didn't put a picture. It would have been great if you can put a face to the name. But listen,
call yourself out, user. Please tell me who you are. Let's talk to us. Let's have a conversation. For God's sake.
First of all, you should have put that back up because you should. Yeah, please put that back up. Let's deal with this because this is the kind of nonsense that happens. This is PR information right here. First of all, the difficulty in finding Black senior leaders. How do we approach that? Are you looking? First of all, you remember we talk about the focus, right? Are you looking for any? And if so, where are you looking?
And don't tell me it's LinkedIn. Don't tell me it's LinkedIn.
Oh my goodness, man. You see, the issue is where are you looking? And if so, are you even looking? And are you just putting this up as a PR to say, well, and here's the part that gets me. It said, what's the B will not risk?
It's a Black executive.
Black executive will not risk joining a company who is not equipped as a career. No, listen.
It's career suicide only if you want to make it career suicide. And that's because that person that gets in there, the Black executive who gets in there, shouldn't be fazed by it. And that's where we need to change the mindset.
Should not, because they don't have the right environment to accommodate the individual that's coming in. You know, they always say that if you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
If you build the right system, the right work soil, you can put the seed in there and it will grow. But if you have a great seed, as in a BE, for example, right? But you have, quote unquote, let me go out on a limb and say, you have a BE coming in, but you have a BS soil, it's not going to grow in there. Then from that perspective, you do have what's called a career suicide. Not only just a career suicide, you have a suicide, a mental suicide, because you will give them the authority, but they will not have the autonomy to make the decision that they need to make. It's almost like a lot of people have been saying that Obama was president, but he didn't get the autonomy to make the decisions that he need to make the changes that needed to be made. Yes, you're president, but it's almost like you're handcuffed and you can't do much because all the bills that he tried to put through were blocked. So given the BE the title, so to speak, but not the autonomy, again, that, my friend, is career suicide.
I agree. And so I was looking at my phone because I can see who the person was. I'm not going to call this person out.
That's all right. You don't have to call them out. That's fine.
No,
it's good conversation.
But no, it is good conversation. So thank you for bringing it up. And
yes,
again, this is nothing toward that comment.
Correct.
But this is what we have to change in terms of the mindset.
That's what we have to change.
What I will say is this is a person of color
that
is saying it. So, I'd love to hear more from you. So, Marcello Asile, look at this one.
Yes.
A Black executive is less than, is less than BS, LOL. So it's true. Here's I guess next question here, because I do want to keep it coming, but I want to ask you one question. I know we asked this before we went on the air.
Yes.
You're in Canada.
Yes.
And you guys are watching from up north. What's the you told me there are issues of systemic racism in Canada as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. As I said before, racism, it doesn't just lend itself to a particular country. It's not confined within a particular border. It's systemic. I wouldn't just say it's in America, it's global. This is a global issue that we're facing. I was watching some videos a few weeks ago about Blacks in Japan, and they're experiencing the same thing. Okay, I have friends who I have coached who are medical professionals, and they're experiencing the same thing from their chairs and board levels. They are certified doctors, they're surgeons. And because of the skin color or the tone of their skin, are experiencing racial slurs and things being said about them, limiting the time that they can actually work and so forth. So it's everywhere. In Canada, so to speak, I say that it's more covert. You get more PR, so to speak, in Canada than you would get the outlash. In America, it's almost like they're fed up. They'll come out and just tell you, listen, we're sick of this. You have more riots. You have more people picketing. You have that more outspokenness. But up here, it's with the power of the pen, so to speak. You will see this in the educational system. You see this in the school system. You will see this in primary, secondary, all the way up to university. It's there. But how we deal with it, I think that a lot of people are hurting and they're living the quiet or the silent approach to where they don't want to say much. They don't want people to kind of rain on their parade. But racism is systemic, and it's a systemic thing that is borderless. It's everywhere. It's not just in America. It's in Canada. I'm coming out and I'm saying it. It's everywhere, and it needs to be addressed.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, are there companies, in your opinion, in the US and or Canada that are really amazing at hiring Black executives into their organizations and are role models of equality?
Well, without stepping on anyone's toes, there's one company that I know of, and I know that because my sister She's a doctor, and she's a PhD, and she's head of the nursing department in Ryerson. That's Ryerson University.
Mhm.
And when we speak of Ryerson University, there are other individuals who are friends of mine who are heads of different departments and so forth. So if we want to call a name or put a company out there, I would say, first of all, I would definitely say Ryerson University. That's one of the top that I would think of. There are others too, but the thing that I notice when you go to search and you want to look up information as to getting a specific number, let's say how many blacks, how many African American, how many Latino, that information is really kind of obscure. It's hidden underneath the term or the name diversity and inclusion. So unless you have a sit down time, which is one of the things that I'm going to be doing for the rest of this year, sitting down with these executives and say, okay, talk to me about diversity in your company. That's one of the things that I'm going to be doing with my podcast, because I'm listening, I'm ready. And I'm going to do that as a segment on work-life enrichment seminars. In terms of the US, I was looking up some things today, and it talked about the 10 best companies that are good, that are best for diversity. Again, it doesn't say exactly who these number of executives are. It doesn't give you a specific number. It just say best for. And who are they to say this, what is best for a particular individual? Give me some number. Tell me some number. How many blacks do you have working there? How many blacks are in leadership there? How many Latinos? How many Asian? These are facts that you can put out if you're going to claim diversity and inclusion within your organization. That would be the walk your talk.
Right. And I encourage candidates to ask those difficult questions because companies need to start being prepared to answer that.
Correct.
Right. So, okay, here's another comment from the same person that got us going a minute ago. Andrew, the Black American experience is in no comparison to any other country. True.
I completely agree.
Okay.
I completely agree. And I will start here by saying this. Now, the Black American, as a matter of fact, I went to Southern Arkansas University, and I'm originally from Jamaica. And if you trace my ancestry from Africa, from Ghana, Africa, and then they were transitioned from the triangular trade, and then most of us went to the Caribbean, Jamaica. So my immediate parents are from Jamaica, the land of wood and water and speed. Okay. And so let me talk to you briefly about that. When we talk about the Black experience, yes, it may differ to some extent than that of the US. I heard a quote by Booker T. Washington said that the people who deal with race relation or solving race relation problem do not want the problem to go away. In other words, they want the sick to remain sick so the doctor will always have a job. What does that simply mean?
Why?
Because this is a job for, if we have the systemic racism going on, that there's an issue with the breakdown in Black family, then they always have something to talk about. In quote unquote, he said that they will always have a job because they'll always have a problem to fix. Now, when I hear that, it seems as if they're focusing more on, yes, the man owes me. When I hear that, coming from Jamaica, I didn't really experience racism. I really didn't to that extent. I went to Southern Arkansas University. It's the South. The only time I thought that I experienced racism is when I got pulled over by these 4 cops in Louisiana, and my life felt threatened because of how they were dealing with me. And I felt that they were really trying to push me over the pit with the bumpers on their car. And I just started praying. But I'm not trying to sway away from the question, but it's that sometimes you be put into these circumstances, and I didn't experience racism in that way until I went to school in the South. Yes, the American experience may be different from that of Canada, but there is one threshold that we all share. There is inequality. There is not enough people speaking up. There's not enough awareness of the systems that are put in place to limit people of color from entering into certain doors. And that's everywhere.
It's so true. So, well, this is kind of a good follow-up question. And so in your opinion, will the white population, along with other races who protest and fully support the Black Lives Matter campaign, will they be able to squash the hate and change the mindset. And I mean, we know that it's not gonna happen overnight.
Right.
But as we had initially talked about at the outset of the conversation, it starts at a young age, and
Correct.
what we should be, teaching our children.
Correct.
So, what are your thoughts on that one about my question? So, will the white population, along with other races, who protest and fully support Black Lives Matter, be able to truly squash the hate and change the mindset?
Okay.
Through
Now,
protests or whatever.
When you talk about Black Lives Matter, now all lives matter, right? And I posted something on LinkedIn the other day. I said all lives matter. That's a no-brainer, right?
I heard that upsets people.
Yeah, that's okay. People are going to be upset either way.
Not everything,
right?
True.
I once said that if you walk in emotion, you will always step on your feeling and say, ow, it's a nerve. Okay. The point of this, what I'm trying to get people to understand is that, yes, all lives matter. But currently, Black lives are in danger. They're an endangered species. And if you look at it, it doesn't just lend itself to police or law enforcement abuse or murder. It doesn't just lend itself that. It's across the spectrum. When you look at all the things, all the barriers, and that's why it's systemic, because these barriers were put in places to limit a certain kind of people based on what they look like. You look at the things that Jackie Robinson been through, and just trying to get into baseball, even though he has, and if we were focusing on skills, Michael, Jackie had mad skills. You hear what I'm saying, right?
Yeah,
but he was still limited from doing what he was good at. So it comes down to show you that it wasn't even about the skill set. It was just about putting the system to limit a particular group of individual. So when I think about Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, but the urgency right now is for the one that's bleeding. If the EMS shows up, I'm not going to be checking everyone that's in the crowd standing up. It's the one that's on the floor that's bleeding that I need to address. And it's not just about policemen abuse. It's about the systemic system that has been set in place to limit them from the corporate office, from the board office, from the C-suite level. How do we deal with those? First of all, we have to talk about it. The riot and burning down buildings is not going to get the point across, because that's from an emotional perspective. We need to undo the systems that are put in place to limit these individuals. How can we do that? You got to create some kind of a task force that's going to go in and hold these companies, hold them accountable. Say, okay, man, first you're talking diversity. Let's see what it looks like. And what's your hiring process like? How do you go about selecting individuals to bring them into your company? How do you go about finding the right talent to bring them in? And if so, how long has it been? What's the time frame? How long has it been since you hired, let's say, a person of color or a BE, a Black executive? And now let's go, what about the autonomy? How much decision power have you given to this individual? Or was it just to say, I am just trying to uphold the diversity cliche?
So I would agree with what I put up there. There is no training program or policy that will wipe out hate and racism. It's a people problem, and you nailed it, and that was, and we fully agree, right? I mean, it's a people problem.
It's crazy because
a
good friend of mine and speaker once said this: if there was ever a training program, it would start with untraining before you begin with training. You know what I'm saying? It's like somebody know how to walk. Let's teach him how to not walk before we can teach him how to run again. A great speaker and friend of mine said this. He said, we are busy doing human things instead of being human beings. We're doing human things under the quote of diversity and inclusion, but we're not being diverse in our thinking and in our actions. We say it, but when it comes to stepping out, if you're going to hire an individual because of his skill set, regardless of his color, do it. Don't just make it a PR thing. If you're going to go into the area, so to speak, where they're predominantly Blacks or people of color, then go in there. Why not go in there and recruit?
That's right.
Step up to the plate and swing If you're going to talk diversity, swing and hit, and don't just hit for one color, hit for expertise.
Right. And don't miss either when you do it. So, you brought up you said something kind of, I would rather teach someone to love than before learning how to walk.
Oh, Mike, you're going to get me excited right now, man.
I would rather teach love. I just don't understand how the people that are racist and bigots and just whether they hate Black people or hate Jewish people or hate Hispanic people, I don't understand it. It's really getting to me right now as I talk to, because I don't understand why we can't just.
You know why you don't understand it, Mike? You don't understand it because you don't practice it. You don't understand it because you weren't taught it.
Right.
If you go to a surgeon, orthopedic surgeon, and he says to you, the surgeon says to you, can you please explain the ambulation, the biomechanical ambulation of the human species, right? Explain to me what is heel strike, foot flat, toe off, and sink through. That is the actual modality, how they walk. That's what's happening. They can tell you what joints are being flexed, what muscles are being engaged. I only know this because that's been my background for part of the years while I was working on a doctorate in Florida, right? I use this information to teach companies and say, look at your company as a body, a human body. If you want to live and to live abundantly or have your business grow, you can't just discard the heart because it's a black heart. Correct. You need the heart to pump the blood to get to all the working tissues.
In any human. Do
you hear what I'm saying? And when you go below the subcutaneous, the subcutaneous, you are not looking at a black color or white color. You're looking at tissues, organs, nerves, things that come together to make the body function. I love what you said when you said that teach them love. I'm a believer, and the Bible says love covers a multitude of sin. And what does it simply mean? Sin is transgression against how we should be as human beings. It's not a religion. It's really it's common sense, but the common sense is from a spiritual perspective, because racism is not a color issue. And I'll say it here, Mike, I'll say it again. It's not a color issue. It's a spiritual issue.
Amen.
And this is why it's able to go on for so long, because we're a spirit being. And this spirit basically harbors it. Oh my goodness. Let me tell you something. It is not about a skin tone. It's a spiritual thing. And that's what's been perpetually carried on for years and years and years. And it's been taught.
It has. And, my friend Chuck Vanderweel, it's definitely a people problem. We've all been created equal in the eyes of God.
That's right. It's a people problem. And that's why, okay, all right. I got Mike, listen. It's a people problem. And Chuck, I agree with you. The reason why I know it's a people problem, because you know what? I don't see a lion, because it's a carnivore, right? And if I'm going to pick an animal that's really, I should say, a 5-course meal, would be a zebra, right? Lions, they love them. I watch National Geographic all the time, right? And you can see these guys going after the prey, and they're going after the meat. I've never, ever, Mike, seen a lion look at a zebra and said, wow, I don't know what to do. They're white stripe and they're black stripe. I don't know which one to eat. Matter what, I'm only going to eat the white stripe, or I'm only going to eat the black stripe. It's going to take him a lifetime. He just dive in and eat. Animals are not prejudiced. It's a human problem, and it's a spiritual problem that's ingrained for decades.
I hate to admit this, but I've actually seen it in real life on a safari in South Africa. And it is amazing to watch the thrill of, the prey and how the leopards are unbelievable. The lions are unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
You're so right. They do not hesitate. They're hungry. Right. Why can't we have that same hunger in our stomach
as a recruiter,
love in our heart, and as a recruiter to say,
I'm hungry for talent.
The hell with affirmative, right? The hell with affirmative action. The heck with all these focus groups. let's just talk about it and try to change people one at a time.
That's right.
And you can use the excuse, oh, you can't change a zebra's stripes. Yeah, you can. You can change a person's thought about that. Can you
Correct.
change someone the way they're hyper, their energy and all that? No, because that's a part of their DNA.
Correct.
Would you agree? Racism is not a part of the DNA.
No, it's not. It's a mindset.
It's inherent. It's a mindset. It's what we inherit through generational learning.
Correct. And Mike, when we look at this systemic, I love the word systemic. I love it because it is so true. It hits the nail right on the head. Because my son does programming. He's only 12 years old and been meddling around with computers for a while. And I sat there and I watched him build this game. He built this app and he's working on another game. And I said, son, talk to me about this programming stuff, this coding stuff. He said, Daddy, the most important thing about this coding stuff is 2 words. If, then. I said, come on now.
That's right. That's right.
He said, it's about an if, then statement. If I do this, then this is going to be the result. And the only way, the best approach to changing this system is for company to stand up and say, we will not have it. And create a value statement that they can stand on and say, this is what we stand on. This is why we are hiring that person. Not because of skin color, it's expertise. And anything that's beyond that, we don't put up with that. We're not putting up with it. We will not have it. And if you're an executive, if you're a hiring manager or recruiter that have that mindset, you got to go.
That's right. No
That's
question.
how you eradicate that nonsense.
It's like the police. Why did it take 4 days in Minneapolis? Why did it take 3 or 4 days in Atlanta to make that decision? That's a no-brainer.
It isn't. It is a no-brainer.
And prosecute. Fire and I get, I'm not a lawyer, so I get you got to make sure your P's and Q's are all in order.
Correct. It's the system.
Yeah,
that's the reason.
The word system. It's systemic system.
I'm telling you, Mike. And here's the crazy part. You remember we talked about how do we train? I said that we have to untrain. It's like trying to learn a new habit. They say 21 days. Researchers say 21 days you can learn a new habit. It's going to take some generation to unlearn. Love people because they are just like you. Love people because God created all of us in his liking. Are you a black or what? No, you're a human. Let's be human beings instead of busy doing human things. Because all that is just PR. I see a brother, I see a sister, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. That's a person that has the qualification to do the job. Boom, that's it. And anything other than that, let's get rid of it.
Yeah, this is, so one more comment I'll share. It's so true. In a corporate America, there are no protections for employees who witness the racist behavior. They're not calling out hiring leaders as they fear retaliation of job loss. And I'd say that's something we have to overcome. And I agree with you, user. I agree with you. It should be. It's almost like, and this person will know, but you would know this too. You know how people would have the comment box or the you would have the what do they call it? You could call a secure number to report theft or something, right?
Anonymous numbers,
right? You know what? Be a whistleblower. Stand up and bring your voice to be heard. That's the only way it's going to change. It's not going to change by waiting to see what happens because we all fear we're going to lose our job. You know what? I'd rather lose my job for doing something right and protecting what I believe in than not saying something at all. If you see something, say something. Don't let these jerk leaders get away with the BS that they're doing in their systemic racism, whether it's intentional or not. It's still racism.
But you know what, Mike? If you see something and you don't say something, you know what? You are a condoner.
That's right. If you see something, do something. That's what it should be.
If you see something and don't say something, then you really don't have a job. Because if you think that's going to be the thing that helps you to keep your job or helps you to retain employment at that particular company, then you don't have a value statement of your own because you're just there for the money. And guess what? If it's just money, you can make money anywhere, because the skills and the gift set and the expertise that you have, if you market those and get with the right group of people and you have the right value statement, there are over 7.6 billion people on this planet. You tell me you can't get 10 or 15 of them in a room and teach them how to do something that you know how to do well. I think fear is the next thing, Mike. Fear is the next thing. It's drummed up in our system that because we are fearful of making human decision, because the things powered us and make us sit down and become controlled by a system that we're just trying to survive in. What if we just stand up for the right thing? Wow, we'll change the world individually.
And I'm sorry, this is the last, and this is the most accurate statement of all.
Wow.
HR, you know what? Senior leaders in HR, you need to figure stuff out, and you need to be gone because you're not doing your job as a human resources leader. Whether you're a chief executive human resources officer, or you're a director of HR, or you're an HR generalist, whatever, you need to take care of business when you get back to work, or start now. So this is going to be my final question to you, as we kind of, we're already at the bottom of the hour, so I'm sorry for going a little late here. But
no,
I'm
Mike, this is a
I'm
conversation
time,
that must be
yeah.
had,
And we need to continue this.
We will. We definitely will.
So, so any final thoughts and words on how we can become, how we, the white people, become more involved in helping rid the hate?
All right. I said, first of all, I want to just say thank you to you and your audience, just for tuning in tonight.
They've been great.
I don't just want you to tune in, but just like the last comment that talks about HR, human resources, the first and the key word there is human. If you're not looking after human, then you should just be a resourcer of things. There are people who manage things, and there are people who manage people. If you care nothing about people, then you should just manage things. Leave the HR to people who care about people. All right. Next thing, I want to say that I want to make sure I give this information key here. Final words. We need to understand that we all endowed with specific gifts, skills, and expertise. With that being said, no one person has all the skills, all the gifts, all the expertise. Michael Palmer sang a powerful song, and I used it for my intro when I'm doing corporate training. It says it takes every kind of people to make life go round. Did you hear me? The emphasis is round, just like the world. Okay? It takes every kind. It's going to take the black of me. It's going to take the white of me. I so love the way God created me, Michael. I'm not just a black man. I got tan palms. I got white nails. And don't get me smiling up in this place here. You know what I'm saying? Don't you get me started. It's going to take all of us. But it's not just going to take all of us, Mike. It's going to take the best of us, because you want the best people at the helm. You want the best pilot when you're on a long trip. You want the best doctor when you're on the table. You want the best nurse. You want the best nanny. You want the best teacher in the classroom. You want the best of all of us. And the only way we're going to get the best of us, if we teach the rest of us that color exists. It's a no-brainer, but the thing that you don't get to see is, Martin Luther King said it, the content of the character of the individual that you're hiring. Let's focus on content and put people in place that is going to make right decision to combat systemic racism, because it is a system that we're working with. And the reason why it's been perpetuated for so long is because the system is run by the people who are in those positions. Get rid of them. Period.
You got to start somewhere. And it starts with me. It starts with you. It starts with every one of our commenters. And I so appreciate everyone for spending the full hour a little bit more. I appreciate you taking the time. How can people get in touch with you? What's the best way? I think we need to. I want you to promote your book. I want you to promote your where people can contact you. Let's continue these conversations.
We need to book something on a regular, Mike. I think that these poignant conversation needs to be had, and I think executive who are tuning in right now needs to bring these kind of talks into their company. By the way, you can reach me at www.andrewguyspeaks.com. We're also launching our new consultant website called worklifeenrichmentseminars.com. And this is where we're dealing with these issues with executive and leaders who make decisions within those companies. You can also reach me on my podcast because I'm listening. I am ready, which is on anchor.fm, Andrew Guys Podcast. You can get me at my email, reach out to my booking manager. I'm Dave. That is INFO at AndrewGuySpeaks.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Andrew Guy Speaks. I'm also launching my new LinkedIn group that's called Greatest Impact University. I'm going to be launching that in the next couple of months, and it's based on my new book that's coming up, Creating Your Greatest Impact, because I believe that for us to change the world, we have to create an impact, and it has to be so great that this impact be systemic, that will last for years to come. So I'm Andrew Guy. My book is called Work Your Words and Finding Your Pathway to Personal Success. You can get it on my website. You can get it on Amazon. My other book called The Anatomy of the Kingdom and the Power of Community, Exchanging Religion for a Life of Function and Purpose. And it goes back to getting rid of this religion and focusing on relationship. And it takes the power of the body, the anatomy and physiology was based on my doctorate I was working on, and help people understand it's not about a religion. It's about a relationship between the people that you see and the creator that made you. Powerful book. It's a must read.
And it relates totally to the conversation we've just had.
That's exactly it. That's why I'm so passionate about this stuff. This human body.
I love it.
It's beautiful.
I love it. So, Andrew, thanks again.
You're very welcome, Mike.
And thank you to the audience, to Chuck, to Malika, to Jordan, to Alma. Make sure I don't miss anybody here, because then they'll yell at me. Why didn't you mention my name? Marcello, Don Worsfield, everybody, thank you so much. Let's continue the conversation. If you watch this on the replay, if you're watching this on the replay, we want to know your comments.
Yes.
If you're in corporate America, what are you doing to stop systemic racism? Correct. Let us know. Tell us about the companies that you know or that are really working toward this and believe in their hearts that this is the way to go.
Yes.
So I want everybody to be safe. I want everybody to stay indoors. I want people to wear masks.
Yes.
It's going up. COVID's going back up.
Yes,
especially here in Texas. It's terrible. Wear a mask, respect other people, and definitely remember, we're all human. We all have a heart, a brain, and while we might not all have 10 fingers and 10 toes or 2 legs and 2 arms, we still have a heart and we still have a brain. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here.
Right on.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, my friend.
And good night.
Good night. Take care, my friend. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.